Well, everyone, it was certainly a hell of a WrestleMania week, depending on how you look at it. A lot of things worth talking about. A lot of things happen. A lot of things happen I'm sure WWE wants us to quickly forget about and just kind of move on from. But yeah, I guess I'll start there. Because I mean, there's so much going on and so much floating in my head right now. I don't even know where to begin. Everything from like the lead into WrestleMania to the shows themselves to the follow up on Monday Night Raw last night, which I'm going to talk about as I go through the show. There's a lot to discuss here, so I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up being a pretty long video for me. But leading into WrestleMania, there was a lot of stuff going on that was just weird, like Triple H being weird on interviews and kind of snippy and defensive about things, and The Rock did not show up at WrestleMania, which raised a lot of eyebrows considering, his involvement was what set up the main event. And you would think that he would be involved, but he ended up not being involved, which caused a lot of people to basically shit on the main event of WrestleMania. I'll get into that when I get into that. You had Roman Reigns coming out as a Trump supporter, which caused a shitstorm online, which is not ideal, but, social media was going all crazy because Roman Reigns is a Trump supporter. I've said it before, I'll say it a million times over. I don't give a flying fuck what a celebrity thinks politically. I just don't care, and I don't think it's even newsworthy, to be perfectly honest. I don't care who you voted for. You're not that important to me, to where I would base my entire opinion off of what a celebrity says, or my day would be made if a celebrity agreed with me politically. Because truth be told, most of humanity does not agree with me politically. And if I hated everyone that disagreed with me politically, I would hate 98% of humanity. Granted, I kind of do anyway for different reasons. I kind of accepted a long time ago that we're all terrible. I'm kind of baffled that sexism and racism still exist. It's like, aren't we all terrible? Like, can't we all just come to the table and agree that we're all horrible people to some degree? But anyway, I'm half kidding. But anyway, I don't care when somebody comes out and says what their political beliefs are. I remember, when the election happened and there were some sentiments going around Twitter, it's like, but Beyonce came out and supported Kamala, and so did Taylor Swift. How did we not win? And it's like, who the fuck cares what Beyonce and Taylor Swift have to say about anything other than music? I don't care. I don't even want Taylor Swift on my screen when I'm watching a football game. Why would I give a crap what she thinks politically? I just don't. You're not as important as you think you are. And that's kind of my point with celebrities. And it goes both ways. Roman Reigns came out as a Trump supporter. I don't know the context of why, if this was a question he was asked or what. All I know is that he said it, and it drove people bonkers. But I'm like, why do you care what Roman Reigns thinks politically? I don't, I'm not going to lose sleep over who he voted for. I really don't care. Because again, maybe that's because my political beliefs being what they are, I kind of hate all politicians. So it's like, yeah, they're all terrible. Who cares? God's dead and we're alone. What do you want from me? But anyway, so that caused a bit of a shitstorm online. So there was that. And it led to a bunch of people within WWE saying things. I saw some comments from CM Punk saying things, and it was like, man, everybody's getting all defensive and weird. What is going on right now? And then you get to the show itself, and you get Bret Hart rolling his eyes at Triple H during the Hall of Fame segment, which was hilarious. Bret Hart, don't ever change. Please don't ever change. I love that he's just morphed into this crusty old man that's like, I'm retired. I'm the greatest wrestler of all time. I'm just going to say whatever the fuck I want. And he's, say whatever you want about Bret Hart. He is brutally honest, and there's no bullshit with him, which I appreciate, quite frankly. But that happened. You had Stone Cold Steve Austin driving and crashing the ATV into the security wall. A woman tried to take her own bump to try and make it look like he had hurt her or something. I don't know what's going to happen with all of that. But, it led to accusations that Austin was drinking and driving during the show, which... just what is happening right now? It's just, and then the next day, Paul Heyman goes on ESPN and starts saying a bunch of shit that, I'm sure made the executives at ESPN go, it's like, we're not having these wrestling people on anymore. Fuck this. And I don't know. I could be wrong, but Karrion Kross came out and made some comments. Has some people thinking, is he shooting? Is he working? What's going on here? I don't know. It's the best promo he's ever cut, and it felt like he was speaking from the heart, but. but who knows what's going on there. And then you have the Travis Scott situation. Everybody reacted very negatively to the main event of WrestleMania. It has just been like a roller coaster ride. And then even leading in with the Tiffany and Charlotte stuff, it just felt like it's like look, I know WrestleMania is stressful, and I know like a lot of work goes into putting on what is now a 2-night event and all the things attached to it, like the Hall of Fame, like the NXT show, and yada yada yada. But man, it just felt like a bunch of people were cracking under the pressure, and there was just insanity just coming in from all sides. And how do you like wrangle that circus? So like, I don't know. It just felt messy. It just felt very, very messy. There were a lot of fires being put out, which you don't want on the biggest show and the biggest stage with the most eyeballs watching. So the lead into to WrestleMania was very, very interesting. But like, yeah, like the Tiffany and Charlotte stuff, it just felt like, you know, when stuff like that happened in AEW with the Punk stuff and, his falling out with the Elite and all that jazz, it felt like Tony Khan did not have control over what was going on his own show. And it kind of painted him in a very bad light. Not kind of, it did. And it kind of like AEW's never really recovered from that. And to see it in WWE, and maybe this is the impact of losing Vince, because Vince, say whatever you want about that crazy old man, he ran a very tight ship, and he, like, if you were a problem, he would fix that problem. Either you would fix it or you'd be gone. And there was no question on who the boss was. And now it's just like, you see stuff like this going on, it's like, is there nobody there corralling these people? On one hand, it's kind of fun because it's like every other day there's a headline of somebody saying something or doing something. It's like, it's at least the news cycle's exciting, but it's I don't know. It's more stuff that happened. I was just thinking about Jey Uso shows up to his own press conference where he's the new world champion. And he's on a different plane, shall we say. He was clearly out of his gourd. And I'm like, what is going on right now? Everything is crazy. It's wild. The whole thing's wild. But yeah. And that doesn't really have anything to do with the shows themselves. That's just all the stuff surrounding it and all that insanity. But they did come through with a Raw that I thought was pretty damn good for the most part. And I don't know if Raw turned out the way it did because they wanted to kind of make up for WrestleMania, or if they knew WrestleMania. Like, part of me thinks Triple H kind of knew he was laying an egg with WrestleMania because he was so weird and defensive all week, and he kind of knew what was coming. So he deliberately prepared Raw to be amazing, and that's why you got a Becky heel turn. You got the Dangerous Alliance reforming, it looks like, with Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins, and possibly a few other new members coming in. You've got, like, Rusev made his return. You got some NXT call-ups for the women's division with Julia and Stephanie Vaquer, I don't know. So that freshens up the women's side of things for a little bit. So it just felt like they kind of like really, really loaded this Raw with some stuff. And I don't know if they had planned it that way in advance, knowing that the main event of WrestleMania wasn't going to be very good, or if they, WrestleMania turned out the way it did, it got the reaction it did, and they just kind of fixed everything on the fly. Or if this is just what the plan was all along, and they were just kind of like, nah, we'll get there, don't worry, whatever. It's like, oh, WrestleMania, kind of a bust, but, we'll do something special for Raw, and that'll make up for it. And so, I don't know, but it felt like Raw kind of eased people's tensions a little bit and got people talking about actual storylines and things that could actually happen in matches and things. And I'll say this, John Cena on Raw, that might be the best promo I've ever... And keep in mind, I've been watching Cena throughout his entire career, so over 20 years. And that might be the best promo I've ever heard him cut. And it really laid everything out. It's like, I've got 30 some odd days. Oh, wait, I did this one. And the counter keeps going down. That's one of the best things he's ever done. So kudos for that. And we got a match with Randy Orton coming up. That's fine, I guess. I've never liked Orton and Cena's matches, but it makes sense to have Orton lined up as an opponent for him. So it's fine. But yeah, they're doing the storyline that I wanted them to do. I wish Rock was involved at WrestleMania. That would have been nice. But we're getting the storyline that I felt they should have done when they set this whole thing up. So that's a plus. But what else? Before I talk about WrestleMania, I didn't watch any of the shows throughout WrestleMania weekend because I just didn't have time. And NXT, I haven't watched NXT in years. A lot of people tell me it's good, but I've been out of it for so long that I just can't bring myself to find time to do it again. And it's like, with AEW and WWE, I'm trying to keep up with both of those. It's like, it's almost impossible to kind of fit NXT into that. But people have told me it's good, but I'm like, nah, I'm kind of fine. I'm good. I'm good. So I didn't watch NXT. I didn't watch the GCW Bloodsport show, though I did watch the Natalya match because a lot of people were raving about it. I was kind of like, oh, it's fake MMA, which is kind of a nice rebranding for Natalya to give her an extra little something while she's, I guess out reinventing herself. But I didn't see how everybody said it was amazing. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It was fake MMA, but whatever. But good for her. Good for her that she's getting her name out there. And I also saw clips of Sabu being an absolute lunatic at 60 years old, which doesn't shock me, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, whatever. But the Hall of Fame, I did not watch all of it. I only watched Luger's induction and I watched the Natural Disasters because it was like a 3-hour show and I'm like, oh my god, everything is so long now. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna watch the inductions that I really, really were invested in. I heard Triple H went over an hour and I'm like, nah, I'm good. Supposedly the speech was very good. I'm just like, nah, I'm fine. I want to watch Luger, and I want to watch. I've always had a big soft spot for Earthquake, so I wanted to see the Natural Disasters induction. So I watched that, and I thought both speeches were very nice, heartwarming moments for people that Luger I've kind of reevaluated because as a kid he was never I never disliked Luger, but he was never one of my favorites. And as I've gone back and watched more stuff, especially from the WCW catalog, I'm like, holy shit, Luger was awesome. Why was I not like on the Luger train as hard as I should have been? And he was one of those guys that had a rep for being a shitball worker. And I'm like, okay, the people that are saying that, you watched like the last like 2 years of his career. You didn't watch all of it because there was a lot of great Luger stuff prior to that. It was like when Scott Steiner got the rep for being a shit worker. And it's like, no, you're basing all of that on one bad year in the WWE. You're basing that's how Steiner got his entire reputation was based on one bad year in the WWE, which isn't fair. Really, really unfair. And I think people are coming around on Scott Steiner, thank God. And Luger, I think a lot of people have gone back and watched his stuff. And I think, I have a theory on this that, WWE spent years and years and years and years and years just shitting on WCW, saying they never did anything good. They were always the inferior brand. They got lucky and all this other stuff. And then they put all of it on the WWE Network when the WWE Network was a thing, unedited, unbiased, and just let it be out there for people to check out. I think a lot of people checked out that footage and saw, oh shit, WCW actually had some really good stuff. And then there was this wave of WCW nostalgia, and that's how you see guys like Luger finally kind of getting his flowers, which is deserved and very nice. And I was very happy to see Luger get in. And Earthquake, like I said, he's always been one that I've had a soft spot for. I like big guys. I like big monsters. And when I was a kid, like the program with Hogan, where he injured Hogan, was one of the first programs that I remember being like super, super invested in because it was like weird to see Hogan talk about retirement back in 1990. It was like, oh, is this the end of Hulk Hogan? And I think Earthquake had a very good run. It does get appreciated for how talented he really was as a big man. So it was nice to see him get in. Natural Disasters, never one of my favorite teams. I think they were a really good team that unfortunately was around at a time when like LOD was having problems and kind of imploding. Hearts were gone. Demolition was gone. And Rockers were split. And they just didn't have a whole lot of people to really work with. It was like Money Inc. and the Beverly Brothers. And Money Inc. was kind of thrown together because they ran out of tag teams. So I don't think Natural Disasters had the run that they could have had. If they were around like 2 years earlier, they could have had an amazing tag team run with that slew of talent, but they did a good enough job while they were around and for what they were. And, it was the best run of Fred Ottman's career. And he seems like a really sweet dude. Like for a guy that, is kind of remembered for being the Shockmaster. He seems like a really chill, friendly, sweet, sweet man. And it was like, oh, that's nice. That's not, I don't know why they didn't have somebody induct them. Would have been nice if like Cody gave a speech or something because it's like, that's Uncle Fred. For those of you who've heard that story, but from Dusty, that's Uncle Fred. That would have been nice, but whatever. I thought Quake's family and Fred Ottman. They had a very nice moment and said some very nice things. It was a very, very nice speech, and I was happy to see that. So I watched that from the Hall of Fame and nothing else, because nothing else really intrigued me all them. Oh, I take that back. I did see the video packages for Kamala, Dory Funk, and Ivan Koloff. I was like, yeah, those are very nice video packages. I still think this legacy induction stuff is complete bullshit. Just give them proper inductions. Why are we doing this? Like, because I remember they did it the year, there's like the legacy class, and they just threw Luna Vachon and Lord Alfred Hayes, who was one of the top personalities during the rock and wrestling era and like the golden age. And it was like, it's Mean Gene, Gorilla, Bobby, Ventura, McMahon, and Lord Alfred Hayes and Sean Mooney. Like, those were the personalities that were like the non-wrestlers, the non-wrestling roles. And he just kind of gets thrown in there as like, oh, and here's Lord Alfred Hayes. He's inducted too. Yeah, and it just kind of felt, I don't know, like he was being swept under the rug. And this is kind of what it felt like. Just give them proper inductions. Why are we, like, I don't get it. Like, I personally don't get it. But anyway, still video packages were very nice. So with all of that preamble and all of that insanity out of the way, let's get into WrestleMania itself. The prevailing opinion seems to be that night one was flat as hell with a great main event, and night two was great as hell with a shit main event. So it was kind of like they flipped. And, like the way people reacted to night one, you would have thought that like it was basically like a show as bad as WrestleMania 13, except if Brett and Austin had closed. And you'd have thought night two was like completely perfect until Travis Scott came out. And I don't entirely agree with that. I maybe as a general feeling, maybe, but there were some matches I liked from night one, and there were some matches I didn't like on night two. So it wasn't completely, completely perfect like that, but okay, maybe it's a fair assessment. Maybe it's kind of like the Star Trek movies, like the odd number ones are bad and the even number ones are good. I'm like, I kind of like parts of 3. I kind of like what they were going for in 1. It just wasn't completely successful. It was just, 5 had some nice ideas. It wasn't completely, the odd number ones aren't completely terrible, but maybe as a general rule, yeah, the even number ones are stronger. Because I do like 2, 4, and 6 a lot. But, okay, maybe as a general feeling, that's somewhat accurate. But when you get down into the weeds and look at the specifics, I'm like, it's not completely clean all the way through. But getting into night one, we opened up with Jey Uso versus Gunther, which I think may have been too hot of an opener to start with. Again, I think it's stupid to open with a world title. I think it's stupid that this world title even exists. And that's kind of my rant on the lead into this, because a lot of people online have just turned on Jey Uso and just been like, you would think he's like the worst person to ever hold a world title. And I'm just like, guys, calm down. It's like, and my whole stance is like, look, I'm not going to begrudge them giving it to Jey Uso and giving him a win here, because it's like, look, he got over naturally. The crowd reacts to him very well. Oh, he's just a catchphrase and an entrance. I'm like, yeah, sometimes it's all you need to get over. Shut up. Get over yourselves. Not everybody needs to be fucking Kurt Angle and Bret Hart. Calm down. It's show business, like. Hacksaw Jim Duggan made a Hall of Fame career out of saying ho and having like 2 moves. Like, shut up. Like, what are we talking about? But Uso, I'm not going to begrudge him getting the spot or anything. If this world title has to exist, it's like, fine, give it to the babyface that got over organically. But I just feel like this belt shouldn't even exist. And I think it's stupid that it exists. I think it's, it was the Roman Reigns consolation prize. And now it feels even more pointless after Roman Reigns lost the title, so I don't understand any of this. But as I predicted, Jey Uso's entrance at WrestleMania, very cool. He came out through the stadium crowd. It looked cool. It felt cool. It was probably the coolest entrance of the whole weekend. I'll get into that in a little bit. But, all of that I thought came off well. And then the match itself was pretty much exactly what I expected, except for maybe the finish. I wouldn't have predicted Gunther would tap out to Jey Uso, but again, nice surprise, and it's like Jey had a little bit more surprises to him than Gunther was prepared for, so he kind of caught him off guard. And I'm like, okay, that kind of works. And hey, the crowd popped for Jey Uso winning, so I was like, okay, nice opener. But I felt like it was too hot of an opener because it's one of the bigger it's a world title match, so it's one of the bigger matches. So then the crowd was kind of flat for the next couple of matches, and I'm thinking maybe they should have opened with the U.S. title match and put the world title match in the middle, maybe swap those 2 matches, and you would have been better off. I don't know. Maybe I always think about like pacing and structuring of a show, and that's one where I felt like maybe they should have gone with the U.S. title as the opener. But then a heel won that one. But then the crowd likes Jacob Fatu, so it's like, yeah, whatever. Nah. But one thing I will say is a criticism of the entire show, and it was more of a problem on night one, but it was definitely there on night two. There are so many goddamn commercials and ads and promotions in this show. Like, it was insane. It was like every 10 minutes there was like some kind of thing being hawked and sold to me. And I'm like, guys, I remember when we got to the main event, it was Cena and Cody. And this is the match I've been looking forward to because I want to see Cena win. I want to see him go on this heel run. So that was the match of the weekend. And they're doing their entrances, and they do like this promotional thing for drumstick ice cream cones. I'm like, oh my God, will you shut the fuck up? I felt like I was turning into Grandpa Simpson. All I could think of was Grandpa Simpson on that one episode where he's in the class, the eating oranges class, and he just gets frustrated and goes, just eat the damn oranges. And that's kind of what I felt like. It was like, just get to the damn match already. Jesus Christ, stop selling me shit. Look, I understand like promotions and, you know, deals and sponsorships and all that other stuff, but there was too much of it to the point where it felt like the show was half commercial. Even the entrances had commercials in them. Like, it was weird. It was crazy. Like, every 2 minutes, like, something was being hawked or sold. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, I was just getting so annoyed first. It was kind of the opposite of an AEW pay-per-view where my criticism of AEW is that the matches are too long and it's just action and spots to the point where you just get sick of it. Here, I'm just like, could you stop with the commercials and just get to the goddamn match already? Like, oh my God, this is annoying. And both methods are annoying to me. So it's like, can we find a happy medium? Can we find that happy medium and just make that work? Oh well. But anyway, Jey Uso and Gunther, fine. Then we got the tag title match, which was whatever. They've really dropped the ball with the New Day heel turn, because when they first did it, it was like, ooh, they've got something hot here. And when I was thinking ahead to WrestleMania, I'm like, okay, New Day's got to be in one of the biggest matches of the weekend, because they're like, look how red hot they are, and this heel turn is really red hot. And they did fuck all with it. Like, nothing, to the point where I forgot that the heel turn even happened. And then it was like WrestleMania rolled around, and then they threw them up against the War Raiders for the tag titles. And I'm like, motherfucker, I forgot the War Raiders were the tag champions. So this match just felt ice cold and uninteresting. New Day won, which I guess is fine, but the match itself was nothing to write home about. Then we got to Naomi versus Jade Cargill, which had its moments. That one counter from the electric chair into the powerbomb looked nasty. I was like, holy crap, that looked amazing. So they picked their spots with Jade, because Jade, and I've said it for years, she's one of those, like, to use the Bret Hart scale, out of 30, you know, 10 out of 10, you know, out of 10 promos, out of 10 look, out of 10 work rate. She's like a 10 out of 10 look. I would say she's good on promos. I'd say, you know, give her like a 7 or an 8 on promos. And her weakest area has always been in ring, where it's like, you know, at worst, maybe a 2. At best, maybe a 4 or 5. And here she was more on the higher end of that. Maybe working with Bianca gave her a little bit of time to kind of sand those rough edges off and become something a little bit more solid. And they worked hard out there. I think the crowd was a little cold for this. Again, maybe it was because the world title match went out there first. I don't know. Match was okay. Really, I didn't have any major problems with it. Jade won, which makes sense. Of course, she had a wardrobe malfunction, which was going all around Twitter, of course. And I'm like, oh, that's unfortunate. That's not going to be good for any. What's the Seinfeld line? That's not good. That's not going to be good for anybody. But yeah, the match was fine. Then we got to the U.S. title match, LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu, another match that I kind of felt like they didn't know what to do with either guy, so they just threw them together, and it turned out okay. It was a pretty solid match. The crowd was, you know, coming alive for this one, chanting for both men. Did some really cool stuff in there, and Jacob Fatu won, which is good. He, you know, keep building him up as this unbeatable monster. I think that's good. So I thought that match worked really well. Didn't have much of a story going into it, but they built up Jacob Fatu fairly well as to where you would buy him as a contender for the U.S. title, so that worked for me. And I think this probably should have been the opener. I think it probably would have worked better. But overall, I thought it was pretty good. Then we got the Luchador match, which, I haven't talked about that. So apparently WWE has acquired AAA, and they're going to use this to kind of get a foothold in Mexico, create an NXT Mexico, and another part of WWE's pathway to total dominion over the wrestling world, because it feels like they've got Evolve now. I think they've bought TNA and just haven't said it. Like, there's some kind of an agreement in place. Like, it just feels like TNA is not TNA anymore. It's just another wing of WWE. They're having a presence on the independent scene with Triple H creating those new independent titles or whatever because, yay, more belts. We need more belts. Everybody needs belts. Everybody gets a belt. Your grandmother gets a belt. Everybody's got a belt. But now they're kind of going to be starting their own luchador thing. They're doing their own like luchador NXT takeover special, which, as many have pointed out, is kind of ripping off what AEW has done with CMLL and other things like that, trying to ape off of that idea that AEW was doing. I'm not saying this is somebody who hates WWE or anything, but them constantly expanding and taking over other areas and expanding their reach, like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel good for wrestling as a whole, because I don't want to live in a world where everything is WWE, because that would suck. Because I've lived in that world when WCW was gone and ECW was gone, and then for the whole, up until TNA showed up on FSN on 04, that was all I was able to watch. And yeah, Ring of Honor was around, but how often am I going to get to watch DVDs of Ring of Honor? It was TNA was the first thing that came around that was like, okay, this is not WWE, it's on TV, and I can sit down once a week and watch it. And that was like such a breath of fresh air, and WWE wasn't even that bad at the time. It was just, it's the same formulas, the same things, the same presentation over and over again, and everything just kind of looks the same. And I don't want that. I don't want everything to be WWE. I want different expressions of the art form. And, the comparison I made online was it's kind of like Disney and how it's like, their business model for the last few years has been, let's acquire IPs and just ape the holy hell out of that and just buy everything and buy everything and buy everything. They bought Fox, they bought Star Wars, they bought Marvel, and we all know how that turned out, how I feel about modern day Star Wars especially. It's not great. And I don't like it. I don't like it. It's like, can we have different expressions of the art forms? Can we have different things? Must everything be the same? But anyway, that's my feelings on that. Anyway, okay, so we get to this match. It was supposed to be El Grande Americano, Chad Gable under a mask doing a Blue Blazer bit, kind of, sort of, going up against Rey Mysterio, but Rey Mysterio got hurt on the SmackDown right before WrestleMania, so he had to be taken out. They put Rey Fenix in, which kind of sucked the life out of this match a little bit, because, Rey Mysterio is such a big star. But credit to Fenix, he got to have his big match on a WrestleMania stage and, look good in the part. The match itself was kind of laid out like a luchador match, which, not my preferred style, but at least it was something, like, different on the show, and I kind of like that. It was kind of like at WrestleMania 14, where you had Taka Michinoku versus Aguila, I think it was, and it was just a straight-up cruiserweight match where they're just bouncing and flipping all over the ring. It was like, yeah, but it looks different from every other match, so it kind of stands out. And that's kind of how I felt about this. It was like, yeah, it was good, and, credit to Chad Gable being able to work that style of match and make it work. And, the match, again, it was okay. I thought, entrance-wise, he probably had one of my favorite entrances of the entire weekend. That was pretty cool with the video and the color filter and all that stuff. But, this was, again, it was fine. As a filler match, it was completely fine. Losing Rey kind of sucked the life out of it a little bit, but they did the best they could with what they had. Then we got the one, Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair, which, contrary to the build-up, was not a disaster, because, holy shit, like, the side-by-side interview segment that they did, the split screen segment that they did, it felt like Tiffany was being sabotaged. Like, it felt like Charlotte went off script and said some stuff that Tiffany wasn't prepared for, and she got flustered and looked like a deer caught in the headlights, and it was a disaster. And then you get to the in-ring segment the next week, and Charlotte gets flustered by all the boos she's getting, and everything just went off the rails, and Tiffany finally got mad and said, I'm just going to say some shit. And she said some shit and got the hell out of there, and it was one of the cringiest and most awkward segments I have ever seen. I've seen in a long time. Like, it was really, really bad, and the build-up to this was just a disaster. And, they brought Charlotte back after a year, horribly miscalled, like how the fans were going to react to her. Should never have won the Royal Rumble. That was a huge misfire. Shouldn't have happened. it was just like the entire build up to this match was a disaster. And then you get the problem, and I noticed this while watching the match itself. It's like, if I'm a first time viewer, it's like, all right, we got two girls, long blonde hair with similarly colored outfits, like the pink. They were both wearing pink, and they also did it in the SmackDown segment where they were both wearing kind of similar black outfits. And I'm like, is Charlotte doing this, or is somebody in WWE not seeing this? Because it's like you don't want them to look the same. Because that was one of the problems with Jimmy and Jey Uso's match from last year. It's like, yeah, the build-up's great, but then you get to the match itself, it's like, wow, they look exactly the same and have the exact same moves. And so you can't really get a feel for who's who, and like the story kind of gets lost in translation. And that was kind of happening here. And again, I'm somebody who watches the show. If you're a first-time viewer, you'd probably get confused. It also looked like they were kind of out of sync with each other towards the end in the final few minutes or so, and it wasn't completely clean, but Tiffany went over, and we should probably move on from this and never, never, ever speak of this feud ever again. So the match itself was not the disaster that I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't. And this is one of those weird things where people online were saying, like, oh, they had that disastrous segment. I'm more invested in the match. I'm like, what? How does that work? I'm like, okay, that's the key to getting people invested. Just have shitball segments where everything goes off the rails, and that'll get you invested in a match. And there's a way to like inject realism into the matches, but that was clearly like a complete failure from everybody involved, and Charlotte being completely out of place in seemingly every role they cast her in. And I don't know. I was just glad they got out of there relatively unscathed. Tiffany's Barbie entrance was kind of neat, even though it was just another ad. It was just another ad. Partnership with Mattel. And I'm like, oh my God, these people selling me shit. But yeah, the match happened. Let's move on. I expected a disaster there, and it was not. So I guess it excelled in low expectations or something. But then we got to the main event, which everybody loved. I'm not the biggest fan of triple threat matches. I've said that before. I've said that in the previous video, one of my WrestleMania what ifs. That said, the match was pretty good. I enjoyed it. My big issue going into it was that, again, story being what it was not a whole lot of it made sense to me. Like, it would have made more sense to do Punk versus Roman, or if you're going to do this triple threat match, then have some kind of a stipulation. Like maybe the winner would get a title shot the first Monday after WrestleMania, or something, anything, to kind of make it worth something. And as is, it was just a match with a bunch of people who are connected, but it's a triple threat, so you're kind of expecting somewhat of a spot fest rather than a classic, epic, mano-a-mano showdown, which you could have done with Punk and Roman, you could have done with Roman and Seth. There's a few different things you could have done, but instead we got them all thrown together into a triple threat match where they're fighting over Paul Heyman, who is a scumbag. Like, I mean, I've been watching that guy since I was like 5-6 years old. His whole character is a backstabbing scumbag. So why do any of them trust him? Like, at this point, like, I don't get it. And sure enough, he betrayed Roman and Seth and Punk and joined up with Seth. And it's like, oh, you mean that thing he always does? He's betrayed Lesnar twice. He betrayed Punk once already. I mean, it's what he does. He's Paul Heyman. So I was like, I wasn't surprised by any of that at all. But it did set up the nice thing on Monday Night Raw where it looks like we're going to be getting... people are saying Evolution. I'm saying Dangerous Alliance is what I'm saying. So it's like you've got Seth Rollins, who's kind of the Rick Rude. You've got Braun Breaker, who's more of a brute, but he's kind of the Steve Austin in that scenario where he's the youngster with a huge upside. And then you have potential to add more members. It's like, well, Becky Lynch just turned heel. She could be the Medusa of the group. You need tag team veterans. New Day turned heel, won the tag titles. They could be your tag team. You need Larry Zbyszko was in the group, and he's a hateable jerk. And it's like, all right, let's get a hateable jerk in there. Logan Paul would kind of fit that bill. I don't know. There you go. Dangerous Alliance, all put together. So I don't know what the plan is or where this is going to go moving forward, but it made for a great ending to Monday Night Raw, and Braun Breaker is somebody I'm very high on. Except for the name. Rex Steiner is literally the coolest name ever, and I don't know why. I just don't know why they went with Braun Breaker. But in any case, I thought the triple threat to end night one was really good. Probably the best match of the whole weekend, although the next contender for best match of the whole weekend was the opening match of night two, which I will talk about right now. And starting off with night two, we had the Women's Championship match between Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, and the champion Io Sky. Now, this was another one, another three-way that was set up for WrestleMania that I felt like was kind of haphazardly put together. It was like a crappy version of the WrestleMania 20 main event, which was actually really well set up, where you had Shawn Michaels and Triple H feuding. Their Royal Rumble match ended in a draw. So there was a controversy there over who the real champion was. They'd had the match on Raw in December of '03, which is like one of the best matches in Raw history, where they had the double pin finish. And so it was like Shawn was this close to getting the belt from Triple H. And then all of a sudden, Benoit wins the Royal Rumble and then exercises the rule to go to Monday Night Raw and throws a huge monkey wrench into all of that, and which was something we didn't know he could even do. So it was like a nice surprise. And so you had all these three guys who had a legitimate claim to the title, and it just set up a triple threat. Here it's like they tried to do something like that, but everything was so poorly set up and rushed, and it felt like Io Sky was just there to eat the pin. Thankfully, she actually went over and actually won. So I was like, oh, okay, they surprised me, because it just felt like she was in this just to eat the pin, because I was speculating, like, is there some kind of problem between, because it felt like the match should have been Rhea versus Bianca, and it felt like maybe one didn't want to put over the other or something. Like, I don't know. That was kind of like because that happens a lot of times where we see things like this. And, you know, I've talked about it with fantasy booking. Fantasy booking is the easiest thing in the world to do until you have to actually deal with all of the egos and all of the talents and everybody involved in putting everything together and getting their approval on everything. So I was wondering, is there something going on with Rhea and Bianca to where they don't want to put each other over? Like, is that why they just made this a triple threat with Io Sky thrown in? But then Io Sky went over, so now I'm like, I have no idea why they did any of this. So who knows? But the match itself ended up being pretty good. A lot of action, a lot of great counters, a lot of cool stuff that you would expect out of these three. And I thought, again, one of the better matches of the entire weekend. It's this or the triple. My two favorite matches from WrestleMania were the triple threats. And I've gone on huge rants about how I'm not the biggest fan of triple threat matches. Go figure. But yeah, I thought this match was very, very good. And Io winning was actually a nice surprise. So great way to start night two. Then from there, we rolled right along to the street fight between Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest. Match was fairly typical WWE hardcore match. I feel like I've seen this match 1,000 times, but Drew McIntyre is awesome. I'm glad he went over, and the selfie thing again at WrestleMania is hilarious and awesome, and I think Drew McIntyre is one of the best in WWE and deserves a lot more. So good on him. I really, really liked him in this match. I've never been the biggest fan of Damian Priest. He's one that they keep wanting to convince me is a main eventer, and I'm just like, I don't see it. Oh, he's okay, I guess, but I just don't see him as being like that world title level. But then again, they have two world titles floating around, so maybe he is world title level, because world title level is like when you have multiple world titles, it kind of gets diminished, which is my problem with the whole, like, why there's so many belts, because like the status of champion means almost nothing now because there's so many friggin' belts floating around. But in any case, yeah, the match was fine. It was, again, fairly typical WWE hardcore match, but Drew made it memorable in his own way. And then we followed that up with the four-way for the Intercontinental title. Thank God they didn't make this a ladder match. And this was actually a rare case where, you know, a lot of people were saying this online. This is a rare case where it's like you have multiple people in a match, and I don't care who wins, because any one of these options is fine. I probably wouldn't have liked Finn Balor winning because he's just nowhere near as cool as he used to be, as you know, as exemplified by his entrance in that stupid outfit he was wearing. It's like, like Dirty Dom, hateable heel, glad that he won. It's like, I feel like he could do some stuff like that. Braun Breaker, freak of nature, love him, he's great. Penta, always been a big fan of his, he's great. You could do something with him. Finn was the one where I'm like, but so thankfully he didn't win. They gave it to Dirty Dom. Nice action-packed four-way that kind of exemplified the strengths of everybody involved. Braun looked like a freak. Dirty Dom looked like a sneaky heel. Penta got to do his cool stuff. There was a lot of good stuff in this match. It was it didn't go too long. Thank God it wasn't a ladder match. We're getting a TLC match on SmackDown this week for the tag titles. A lot of people were upset that match didn't happen at WrestleMania. I'm like, I'm good. I've seen enough ladders and TLC matches for the rest of my life. I think I'm okay. But and granted, that one would have had more story than most because of all the issues between DIY and Motor City Machine Guns and everything else that led into that and the whole title situation. But I'm just so sick of those matches that I just don't flip and care anymore, even if it does have a legitimate build-up. So that's the latter match has been devalued for me. But yeah, I thought this four-way for the IC title was pretty good. And Dirty Dom winning was kind of nice. And it was like, yeah, that was good stuff here. Then we got Randy Orton versus his mystery opponent. It was supposed to be Kevin Owens, but Kevin had to drop out due to injury, which is a shame because that was one of the more well-built matches on the show. And losing that really cut into the excitement for WrestleMania, for me anyway. And then so it's like they set it up as going to be Randy Orton versus a mystery opponent. And there was a lot of speculation that it was going to be Rusev, who showed up on Raw the next night. I heard Jeff Hardy's name floating around, which I would have probably rolled my eyes at. I was like, ugh, okay. Some people were saying Nick Aldis is kind of who I was hoping it would be because I like Nick Aldis a lot. It would have been nice to see him get a WrestleMania match. But everybody was wrong. It was Joe Hendry, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, came out to a big ovation, big pop, nice moment. And then the bell rings and Orton basically destroys him in 3 minutes, which I don't really care all that much. Again, I feel like TNA's been bought by WWE, and that's why this even happened at all. It's like TNA's just a wing of WWE at this point, so it's like, whatever. I'm glad this match didn't go too long. I was like, let's just keep this short and move on, because it's, the partnership between TNA and WWE is what it is. And it kind of makes me sad that there is a partnership, because TNA was, again, I'll say it again, it was the company that kind of got me back into wrestling by not being WWE, and now that it's basically a wing of the WWE, it kind of hurts. It kind of hurts my soul. And seeing this kind of hurt my soul, because TNA is just kind of getting thrown breadcrumbs by WWE now. That's what it is. And they're going to, if they haven't bought TNA like I think they have, they're going to poach Hendry at some point. So it's like, okay, they're not going to keep bringing him out and just out of the goodness of their hearts. They're going to poach him at some point. And whatever. It was what it was. I didn't care all that much. But then we got probably the most disappointing match of the entire weekend: AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. Logan Paul, I think I've said a million times, I think he's a natural. I think he's so naturally good at this that it pisses a lot of people off. And AJ is a guy that I've been a fan of for over 20 years. So I was like, okay, this is probably going to be a really good match, one of the better matches of the weekend. It was fine. It was kind of flat. I was kind of surprised at how flat it was. I think the big problem with it is that Logan dominated most of the match, and then they did that convoluted finish where they worked in another influencer in there. This feels like an annual thing. Every time they bring one of these people out, I'm like, who are you? I'm not a child. Who are you? I don't know who these people are. They brought out Karrion Kross and did the whole thing with the brass knucks. It was this convoluted finish that didn't come off well at all. And then Logan Paul just won. So it's like, all right, so he dominated most of the match and then just won. And it's like, okay. It was, I don't know, it was kind of a flat match for me and kind of disappointing, considering at this point I hold Logan Paul to kind of a high standard, and I've always held AJ to a high standard. Then they go out there and have this match. It was kind of and kind of, when people say, oh, night 2 was amazing, and I'm like, I don't know, that match happened. So that match wasn't very good. Then we got the women's tag title match where Bayley, for some reason, got taken out of the match and replaced with Lyra Valkyrie's new partner, Becky Lynch. And they won the tag titles together, which led to people, crying Becky Hogan on Twitter. More negativity centered around the show and the online response. But then they lost the titles the next night on Raw, and Becky turned heel and beat the hell out of Lyra. Now, maybe this will do something for Lyra in the long run, because I got to be honest, I constantly forget that she's the Intercontinental Champion, the Women's Intercontinental Champion, and the fact that she got on the show and Chelsea Green didn't feels like a misfire, or not realizing who the real star is. I don't know. It just felt like if you're going to give it to one of them, you would think it would go to Chelsea, who is way more entertaining and way better, and who, granted, I think having an IC title and a US title for the women is completely stupid, because there's too many belts as it is right now, and just having more belts floating around out there is just annoying. But Chelsea Green is very entertaining with that belt. So like, she's like the same as like, look, yeah, I hate that the title exists, but she's really, really entertaining. And makes the show more fun to watch. So you think she would have been rewarded with a Mania spot over Lyra, who, again, I constantly forget that she's the champion. But what are you going to do? So, and I felt like Liv Morgan, after the year she's had, she probably should have been in the title match with Rhea and Bianca and Io, making her four-way. I don't know. She kind of deserved it. How in a perfect world, if I were booking, because I'm such a genius, Liv would have been in the title match with Bianca and Rhea and Io, and the tag title match would have been like Chelsea and Piper versus Lyra and Bayley, and it would have just been that. If you want to do the whole thing with Becky, sure, fine, but whatever. I'm just trying to find a way to like get Chelsea on the show because she deserved it. I felt like, but anyway, this match was what it was, and then the next night on Raw, they did the whole thing with Becky's heel turn. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if they hot-shotted that because the reaction to WrestleMania was so negative that they just hot-shotted that and had another hot angle on a show that was full of hot angles and big surprises. So I don't know. But whatever it was, I wasn't that excited about this match. Becky Lynch's heel turn could be intriguing. We'll see. But I would probably put her in the Dangerous Alliance group with her husband. And, they need a Medusa. Like, just throw her in there. I think would be fine. But anyway, enough ranting about this match. I think I've talked more about it than it probably deserves. So then we go to the main event, which, again, was the match I was most excited for. Because I wanted to see heel Cena win, which he did. So right ending. Right result. Let's not say right ending. It was the right result. And match itself, it was one of those situations where, look, the match doesn't have to be that great, and the match wasn't that great. It was kind of a typical back and forth, finisher festy, kick out nonsense that I've just gotten so sick of that I'm just like, oh, whatever, just get to the Rock and all that stuff and just get to the finish. And then music hits, crowd pops, and it's like, okay, what are we getting? Travis Scott comes out. And I'm like, what? What's happening right now? What is this? And then you're waiting. It's like, okay, Cody got his receipt on him, hit the crossroads. Okay, when's The Rock coming out? Rock does not come out. And then they do this whole bullshit ending where Cody's going to hit Cena with the belt, and then he hesitates, and then Cena blows him, hits him with the belt, and ultimately wins. And I'm just like, that makes Cody look like such an idiot because it's like this whole like, oh, I can't cheat to win or whatever. I'm like, dude, Cena was cheating in that match. He had Travis Scott helping him. At that point, gloves are off. Like, if I don't care if you're the most virtuous person in the world. It's like, oh, you're going to do that? It's like some people have said that about the ending to WrestleMania 4 where Hogan helping Savage win was bullshit, and it was like Hogan stealing the spotlight. It might have been, but watching as a fan, I'm like, no, DiBiase and Andre cheated throughout the entire tournament. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I don't care. Screw them. They suck. And that's how I saw it as a kid. And that's kind of how I would have seen it if Cody had hit Cena with the belt. It's like, oh no, see, Cody's a bad guy now. It's like, no, he's reacting to the situation appropriately. He's being smart. It's like, well, if you're going to cheat, I'm going to cheat right back, asshole. Like, son of a bitch. And hey, if I get DQ'd, I keep the title. Fuck off. You want to play games? Well, let's play. And that's kind of what it should be. It kind of reminds me of like when Bayley and Alexa Bliss, I think it was, they had that kendo stick match where Bayley was like, oh, I can't hit her with the kendo stick. I'm like, okay, then you need to not be in wrestling because you don't have the killer instinct for it. It made Bayley look so bad. And it's probably a good thing that they turned her heel because like it did irreparable damage to her as a babyface. At least that sweet, kind, NXT Bayley babyface that she used to be. So I thought the main event, even though it had the right result, I thought it was terrible. I thought the ending was kind of a wet fart. I thought it was like a huge misstep creatively. Is it the worst WrestleMania main event of all time, like people are saying online? I would say no, and that's only because, I think of the main event to 25 and the main event to 32, both Triple H matches were way more painful, way more painful to sit through. And the main event to 27 was such a shit show that, 13, yeah, I guess, even though I kind of felt bad for Taker and Sid because they were just put into a bad situation where it's like, hey, we have this ice-cold match where we don't really have a main event. Just go out there and do whatever, guys. And it's like, that's a nice situation to be put in. Okay. But yeah, is it the worst of all time? No, but it's the worst one in a while. Well, I don't know. 39 had kind of a wet fart ending too, but at least it played into what happened at 40 the next year, so they made something out of it. Here, it's just like, why is Travis Scott like the turning point of the match that led to Cena's victory? I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. Somebody I was talking to after the show was like, oh, is he the Dennis Rodman of this whole thing? I'm like, don't insult Dennis Rodman. Rodman was actually great in WC, at least leading into Bash of the Beach 97. I actually really liked Rodman. And some of the stuff in 98 was good too. He wasn't as good in the match at Bash of the Beach 98, but that was exciting to have Rodman there. Like, Travis Scott, I don't know who the fuck you are, and you made a bad first impression by legitimately hurting Cody, and then you're the turning point that led to Cena winning the title. It was like, okay, that's fine, I guess. But then the next night on Raw, Cena cut like what I felt was probably the greatest promo of his career, and then got RKO'd by Orton. So that's going to be our first match. I'm like, okay, that's something. That's something. Like, something's better than nothing, and I'll take that. It kind of washed some of the sour taste out of my mouth from what I thought was a really poorly executed WrestleMania main event, and very unfortunate because they were WWE was on such a hot streak, and then it just felt like the lead into WrestleMania, things were. The seams were coming out. Everything was just kind of falling apart. And it's like, what is going on creatively? Like, I don't know. And like I said, all the interviews people are doing and people acting up and people getting drunk at press conferences and God knows what else is going on there. It's like, is there like, because I know they're doing the show on Netflix, showing the behind the scenes of WWE. Is that going to be like a Real Housewives style reality shit show? Like, is that what it's going to be? Because it feels like there's something going on backstage, like a bunch of craziness going on. And that's how it's coming across based on how everybody's talking and how everybody's acting. And everybody's got headaches and just tired of dealing with a bunch of bullshit that we're not seeing. So I don't know. But yeah, the main event of WrestleMania 41 was not good. But I felt like they made some progress with the next night on Raw. And hopefully Mania's in the rearview mirror. Let's focus on the future and keep things going and hopefully kind of get back up that hill. Because it was really funny to go on Twitter and have people say, I'm glad we have AEW. Like, that was kind of, that was one of the things. After AEW gets bashed every single week, then after Mania, it's like, we judged you too harshly, AEW. We're sorry. And it's like, Jesus. Wow. People turn on a dime. But it was, yeah, the main event was not good and kind of a really bad ending to a very weird WrestleMania. Like, if I was going to assign a letter grade, I'd probably go C on the whole thing. There was nothing on it that, except for the main event, there was nothing on it that I hated, but there was also nothing about it that I really, really loved. Yeah, the 2 triple threats were pretty good, but I don't think I'm going to rank them up there as like my favorite WrestleMania matches anytime soon. They were just really good matches on an otherwise kind of flat Mania. So, and the constant commercials I found to be most irritating, extremely irritating, but we got by it. Let's just move on to the future and see if they can kind of, fix themselves and do something more exciting creatively. But I will be on the lookout for that. So that is it for my WrestleMania 41 review. Sorry it was so long-winded. I've got a few more WrestleMania What If videos to knock out. You'll be seeing more of those over the next couple of weeks. And then it'll be business as usual. I'll be doing my best and making videos, and we'll see what I can do. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you all later.